Captain Vyerks wasn't what you'd call an optimist. In fact, calling him that would be like calling a black hole a cosmic inconvenience. Seated at the helm of the Endeavor, he glanced around at his motley crew and sighed. Not because they were an unruly bunch. It was more about the whole negotiating with aliens in a hyperspace rift zone thing. "All right, folks," he began, tapping the console in front of him like it owed him money. "We're about to meet the alien coalition. I want everyone on their best behavior, and by best, I mean don't embarrass me more than usual." First Officer Linara smirked from her seat. "Define usual, Cap." "You know, for reference. Usual is that time you mistook their ambassador's head for a decorative bowl, Linara," Vyerks shot back dryly. "Remember the diplomatic incident?" Linara chuckled, her eyes dancing with mischief. "Ah, yes, the fruit salad of doom misunderstanding. The Endeavor cruised through the hyperspace rift zone, a place of warped realities and general unpleasantness. If hell had a travelogue, this was it. The alien coalition, a collection of species who looked like they'd stepped out of a fever dream, was waiting on the other side of this cosmic mess. "Captain, we're getting their signal," Ensign Drax announced, his fingers flying over the controls like a musician playing a particularly foul-tempered piano. "They sound, well, disturbed." "Disturbed," Vyerks echoed. "By our charming personalities, I assume. More like by our obsession with black holes," Drax replied, shrugging. "Apparently they think we're nuts for even considering them as cool." "To be fair," Linara interjected, "they do have a point." "We're not nuts," Vyerks countered, leaning back in his chair with the kind of confidence only someone who regularly cheats death could muster. "We're just creatively inclined towards self-destruction." The alien coalition's holographic envoy flickered into view above the main console. It looked like someone had decided that a squid and a praying mantis would make perfect parents. "Greetings, humans," it said, its voice like nails on a cosmic chalkboard. "Why do you pursue such reckless endeavors? Why do you pursue such reckless hairstyles?" Vyerks muttered under his breath. "Just kidding," he added quickly, seeing Linara's raised brow. "We're fascinated by black holes because they're the universe's ultimate mystery, like you guys, only less chatty." The envoy's appendages twitched in what Vyerks hoped was appreciation. "Your species seems to have an affinity for danger." "It is unsettling." "Unsettling's our middle name," quipped Drax. "Well, not really, that's Gerald, but you get the idea. We find your species' flirtation with death to be illogical," the envoy continued, tentacles weaving a tapestry of confusion. "Your willingness to approach these voids is unlike any other species we have encountered." "That's humans for you," Vyerks said, spreading his arms wide like a magician about to pull an existential crisis out of his hat. "We're the universe's toddlers, curious, slightly sticky, and always heading for the sharp edges." "Indeed," the envoy replied, its head bobbing in what might have been agreement or a glitch. "Our coalition seeks to understand your motives. Perhaps we can gain insight and avoid misunderstandings." "We misunderstand things all the time," Linara added, her voice laced with a resigned cheerfulness. "Remember that time we thought a ceasefire meant free fire? Good times." The envoy's mandibles clicked in a way that suggested it was recalibrating its expectations of this encounter downwards. "Your cultural emphasis on death is concerning. Why do you celebrate it?" Vyerks leaned forward, eyes twinkling with that certain spark that comes from seeing a puzzle and knowing the answer is going to annoy someone. "We don't celebrate death. We just don't fear it the way others do. It's like taxes." "I mean, sure, we hate it, but we have a sense of humor about it." Drax chimed in, "Yeah, death's just the universe's way of saying you've overstayed your welcome. Time to check out." The envoy twitched again. "Most species strive to avoid such inevitabilities." "Oh, we strive too," Vyerks assured the envoy. "We're just not very good at it." "But that's the fun part, trying, failing, and taking notes on how to fail better next time." The alien, clearly unsure whether to laugh or cry, or whatever it is squid mantises do, opted for changing the subject. "We wish to understand your obsession with black holes as well. They are annihilators of matter and light, and yet you venture close to them. Vierks shrugged. We like things that suck. It's a human thing. Also, they remind us of our exes. Lenara snorted. Let's be honest, Cap. They remind us more of corporate board meetings. Everything gets sucked in, nothing useful comes out. The envoy hesitated, as if it had just realized it was in a conversation with a bunch of lunatics. We would advise caution. Your exuberance for danger is hazardous. Caution is our second nature, Vierks said with a grin that suggested otherwise. Right next to throwing caution to the wind. Or the airlock, Drax added helpfully. Whichever's more convenient. The envoy's form flickered again, perhaps contemplating the futility of reasoning with these strange humans. We propose a joint venture to explore one of these black holes. Perhaps we can learn together. Sweet, Lenara said, clapping her hands. Field trip to the big cosmic drain. Vierks nodded, trying not to look too eager. Agreed. Let's make the universe's most dangerous science project together. The envoy's eyes, or what passed for eyes, narrowed slightly. We anticipate significant risk. Risk is just opportunity spelled wrong, Vierks replied, the corners of his mouth curling into a sardonic smile. And we're nothing if not opportunistic. Splendid, the envoy said, clearly wondering what it had gotten itself into. We shall send coordinates. The hologram blinked out, leaving the crew in a silence only broken by the hum of the Endeavor's engines. Well, that went well, Lenara said, stretching her arms above her head. I give it a solid 7 on the how many times we could have offended them scale. Vierks chuckled, rubbing his temples. We're setting records every day, Lenara. Prepare the ship for the coordinates. We've got a black hole to dance with. Drax leaned back, a lazy grin plastered on his face. Who knows, maybe we'll finally figure out what's on the other side of those things. Probably just more space, Lenara said with a shrug. But who doesn't love a good cosmic mystery? And if it's not, Vierks added, standing with a flourish, at least we can say we went out with style. The crew chuckled, each member secretly wondering if this would be their last adventure. But that was the life they'd chosen, an unpredictable dance on the edge of oblivion. As they prepared to jump to the coordinates that could very well be their undoing, Vierks took a moment to reflect. Death was an ever-present part of their reality, but it wasn't the end. It was just one more step in the unending waltz of existence. Full speed ahead, he commanded, his voice filled with the kind of determination that only comes from knowing you've got nothing left to lose. Let's see what the universe has in store for us next. The Endeavor lunged forward, engines roaring like a defiant shout into the void. And somewhere, in a corner of the cosmos, Death waited patiently, tapping its foot, curious to see what these humans would do next. As the Endeavor continued its beeline toward the coordinates of the black hole, the crew settled into the routine they knew best, preparing for the worst while hoping not to end up a cosmic punchline. Captain Vierks leaned back in his squeaky chair, a sound that somehow managed to be more ominous than comforting. Lenara, Vierks called, tapping his console with the same frustration as a gambler on a losing streak. Let's see if we can't figure out what these aliens are so bent out of shape about. Lenara glanced up, midway through a game on her holo device. They're aliens, Cap. Probably just jealous of our superior ability to make bad decisions. Or maybe they're just not used to people willing to poke a bear in the eye while it's still hibernating, Drax added, not even glancing up from the controls. You know, metaphorically speaking. Metaphorically, sure, Vierks said, scratching an itch on his chin that didn't exist. But there's something more. We need to understand their angle. Maybe they are afraid we'll ruin their neighborhood with our intergalactic shenanigans, Lenara said, raising an eyebrow. You know how real estate gets in these parts. Vierks grunted. Could be, but let's not forget they are as curious about these black holes as we are. They just lack our flair for reckless abandon. More like they lack our flair for turning every situation into a dumpster fire, Drax muttered, tweaking a knob that seemed to have no purpose other than to increase his blood pressure. Right, Vierks agreed, staring at the holographic map with a frown. "Let's dive into this without blowing the whole operation wide open. We're professionals, after all," Linara smirked. "Professionals at what exactly? Making first contact or making first complaints?" "Bit of both," Vyerks replied, a small grin breaking through his serious facade. "Depends on who's asking." Their banter was interrupted by the reappearance of the alien envoy, flickering into view with a disconcerting squelch. "Captain Vyerks," it began, its voice grinding like a blender full of gravel, "we require further clarification on your species' intentions." "Clarification, eh?" Vyerks replied, standing up and stretching like a cat waking from a long nap. "We're just keen on understanding the heart of these cosmic beasts." Knowledge is power, or so the brochure says. The envoy's appendages quivered, whether from annoyance or curiosity it was hard to tell. "Your pursuits appear to defy logic. Most species avoid such dangerous phenomena." "Well, we're not most species," Linara said with a wink. "We like to think of ourselves as trailblazers. In a sort of oops, did we set something on fire kind of way. Your humor regarding fatal situations is perplexing," the envoy replied, its many eyes, or possibly just decorative nodules, fixated on the crew. "Do you not fear obliteration?" "Obliteration's just a fancy word for a bad Tuesday," Drax cut in, twirling a pencil like he was conducting an orchestra of mayhem. "We've been through worse, trust me." Vyerks could see the envoy processing this with the same enthusiasm one might reserve for a dental appointment. "We are aware of your technological advancements, yet your strategies remain concerning." "Ah," Vyerks said with a knowing nod. "You think we're up to something sneaky." "We suspect you have ulterior motives," the envoy said, its voice on the edge of what sounded suspiciously like suspicion. "Our coalition cannot risk exposure to hazardous strategies." "Look," Vyerks said, palms up in a gesture that screamed honesty, or at least as close to it as he got. "We're all about science. Sure, it's the kind you need hazard pay for, but it's science nonetheless." Linara leaned forward, her expression the epitome of fake sincerity. "Black holes are like nature's version of a surprise party. Sure, there's a risk it'll be awkward and possibly deadly, but who doesn't love a good surprise?" The envoy's mandibles clicked, a sound somewhere between a sigh and a reset button being hit. "Our coalition requires transparency. Your species' actions could have far-reaching consequences." "And we're all about consequences," Drax replied, not missing a beat. "We just prefer to deal with them after the fact." Vyerks shot Drax a look that was equal parts annoyance and grudging admiration. "What my esteemed colleague means is, we're all in this cosmic soup together. If we crack the secrets of black holes, it benefits everyone." The envoy's hologram rippled as if it were considering the possibility of being swayed. "Such revelations are risky. We require assurance of your intentions." Vyerks crossed his arms, answering with a confidence that might have been mistaken for foolishness. "Our intentions are as clear as the vacuum of space. We're explorers, not exploiters." With a side of reckless abandon, Linara added, unable to resist another jab. The envoy seemed to absorb this, its silence more eloquent than its speech. "We shall continue our observation. But be warned, actions perceived as threats will be met with remedies." "Sounds like a plan," Vyerks said, his tone as amicable as a bartender cutting off a drunken patron. "We're all about remedies, got a whole cabinet full of them." The envoy faded from view, leaving behind an awkward silence that clung to the crew like static on an old sweater. Linara broke the stillness with a laugh. "Well, they're fun at parties." "Remedies, they say. What do you think that means?" Vyerks shrugged, his eyes on the console. "Probably the same thing it means in any language, something we won't like." "So what's next, Cap?" Drax asked, swiveling his chair around to face Vyerks. "Do we keep cozying up to the black hole or what?" "We head to the coordinates," Vyerks replied, rubbing his hands together like he was about to deal a particularly bad hand of cards. "Let's see what we can uncover before our alien friends decide to put those remedies to the test." As they navigated the hyperspace rift zone, the eerie lights dancing around them like ghostly sentinels. Each crew member processed the conversation in their own way. For all their bravado, they knew they were playing a dangerous game. It was the nature of space exploration, after all, not so much a journey into the unknown as a mad dash toward it with your eyes closed. "Cap," Lenara said, breaking the contemplative silence, "you ever wonder if we're just the universe's way of entertaining itself?" Vierks chuckled, the sound deep and resonant like a tolling bell. "All the time, Lenara. But hell, if we're the cosmic court jesters, at least we're doing it in style." "Good point," Drax said, smiling as he once again fiddled with the ship's controls. "If we're going to get swallowed by a black hole, might as well do it with a sense of humor." And so, with a mixture of reckless courage and gallows humor, the Endeavor surged forward. The coordinates awaited them, promising answers, adventure, and more than a little danger. But then, that was what they signed up for, a front-row seat to the greatest show in the universe, even if it did come with the occasional risk of catastrophic failure. "Let's keep our eyes peeled," Vierks said, his voice steady as the ship hummed beneath him. "If we find something, it's not just for us. It's for the whole damn galaxy, whether it likes it or not." The crew nodded, each resolved to see this through to whatever bitter or brilliant end awaited them. Because in the grand scheme of things, when the universe calls, you answer, even if it's just to tell it to shove off. "Here's to the unknown," Vierks said, raising an imaginary glass. "May it be just as crazy as we are." "To the unknown," Lenara and Drax echoed, grinning like maniacs on the cusp of madness. And with that, the Endeavor raced toward its destiny, leaving behind the worries of the alien coalition and their own doubts. For in the void of space, there was only one certainty: nothing ventured, nothing gained. Or, as Captain Vierks would put it, you might as well have fun before the lights go out. The Endeavor cruised through the hyperspace rift zone with all the enthusiasm of a hungover snail, its crew still buzzing from the bizarre encounter with the alien envoy. The console blinked and beeped in a rhythm that was almost soothing, if you ignored the fact that one wrong beep could signal a very, very bad day. Captain Vierks, ever the picture of contained chaos, leaned back in his chair, which squeaked like a rusty hinge, a sound as reassuring as a coughing engine on a plane. "So, anyone want to place bets on how long before our new friends try to remedy us?" Lenara didn't look up from her holo device, where she was locked in a virtual battle that seemed to involve more explosions than strategy. "I give it 10 minutes, maybe less if they finally realize we're about as organized as a herd of cats in a laser pointer factory." Drax swiveled his chair to face them, a wry grin on his face. "A little optimism, Lenara. Maybe they'll wait at least 15. After all, they did say they'd keep observing." "Observing," Vierks echoed, folding his arms as he stared at the hyperspace map. "Like we're some intergalactic reality show. Watch as these humans defy death with a smile. We should charge for tickets," Lenara suggested. "Maybe make a side business out of it. Come see the crew of the Endeavor. Either they'll discover the secrets of the universe or blow up trying." "Merchandising," Drax said with a nod. "I like it. We could use the cash to upgrade the coffee machine. It's been spitting out something that tastes suspiciously like engine oil." Their musings were interrupted by the console flashing a bright, angry red. The ship shuddered, the hum of the engines turning into an unnerving growl. Something was amiss, which was par for the course in their line of work. "Captain," Drax said, his tone suddenly serious, "we've got a hyperspace anomaly forming right on top of us." Vierks swore under his breath, the kind of swear that was old and worn from too much use. "Of course we do. Why wouldn't we? What's the damage?" "Nothing visible yet," Drax replied, fingers dancing over the controls like a pianist with a death wish. "But it's trying to pull us in. Feels like the universe's way of giving us a cosmic wedgie." Lenara looked up, finally abandoning her game. "An anomaly? Here. You'd think the universe would at least buy us dinner first." The ship lurched again, and Vierks grabbed the armrests like he was about to take off in an old roller coaster. "Options, people. Thrusters are shot," Drax said, his voice tense. "We'd need a miracle or a malfunction the size of our egos to break free." Vyerks frowned, rubbing his chin with the focus of a man trying to recall if he'd left the stove on. "All right, let's see if we can sweet-talk our way out of this one. Linara, open a channel to the alien ship." Linara tapped a few buttons, and the alien envoy reappeared, its holographic form flickering like an old television set. "Captain Vyerks," it began, its voice still as grating as ever, "your vessel appears to be experiencing difficulties." "No kidding," Linara muttered under her breath, earning a half-smile from Vyerks. "Yeah, we've hit a bit of a snag," Vyerks said, adopting his best charming yet desperate tone. "Looks like this rift zone's got us in a tight spot. Any chance you could lend a hand?" The envoy's appendages twitched, its expression, or lack thereof, giving away nothing. "Your predicament was anticipated. Our vessel is also affected, albeit marginally." Vyerks nodded, the kind of nod that said, "I totally knew that," when he absolutely did not. "Well, in the spirit of interstellar cooperation and not dying, how about a little team effort?" "Cooperation," the envoy mused, as if tasting the word and finding it spicy. "This is not common practice among our species, but under the circumstances, we will consider it." "Consider it quickly," Drax interjected, his hands moving rapidly across the console. "Otherwise, we're all going to become one with the universe a bit ahead of schedule." The envoy paused, its silence dragging on just long enough to be awkward. "Very well. We will attempt to synchronize our efforts. However, misunderstandings may arise. Your species' resilience is perplexing." "Perplexing or charming," Linara quipped, flashing a grin. "I mean, we humans do love a good puzzle." "I believe your definition of charming is unique to your culture," the envoy replied, its voice tinged with something that might have been amusement. Vyerks raised an eyebrow. "All right, let's get this show on the road. Drax, how's our coordination looking?" "Like a drunk octopus trying to juggle," Drax said, not looking up from his screens. "But I think I can make it work. If their ship maintains stability, we might just pull this off." "That's the spirit," Vyerks said, a hint of pride in his voice. "Let's show them what humans are made of." "Mostly water and bad decisions," Linara muttered, earning a chuckle from Drax. The alien ship, a sleek vessel shimmering with an unearthly glow, maneuvered closer, its systems interfacing with the Endeavor's like two dancers who'd never met but were both good at faking it. The ship lurched again, and the lights flickered ominously. "Here goes nothing," Vyerks said, gripping the console as if it might bolt at any moment. The anomaly writhed around them like a restless beast, its gravitational pull a tangible force. The Endeavor groaned, metal straining against the pressure, and for a moment it seemed like the universe might finally have its way with them. But then, almost imperceptibly, the ship began to stabilize. The alien vessel's energy field combined with the Endeavor's, creating a bubble of relative calm in the storm. It was a precarious balance, like trying to stop a flood with duct tape and good intentions. "We're holding," Drax reported, his voice a mix of relief and disbelief. "I can't believe it. We actually pulled it off." The envoy's hologram flickered, its multitude of eyes, or whatever they were, fixed on Vyerks. "Your resilience is commendable. We have never encountered a species quite like yours." "Thanks," Vyerks said, wiping sweat from his brow. "We aim to confuse and confound." "Often ourselves," Linara added, her grin as wide as ever. The envoy's appendages twitched in what might have been approval. "Our coalition finds humans to be intriguing. We would like to continue our observations." "Observations," Vyerks repeated, nodding like a man who'd just been asked if he wanted another drink on the house. "Fine with us. Just keep in mind we're not always this graceful." "Indeed," the envoy said, its voice carrying the faintest hint of humor. "We shall be in touch." With that, the hologram winked out, leaving the crew to bask in the afterglow of their unlikely success. The ship hummed along, the tension easing like a rubber band released after being pulled too tight. "Well, that was fun," Linara said, settling back into her chair. On a scale of 1 to 10, how close were we to becoming space debris? 11, Drax replied, shaking his head with a bemused smile. But hey, we live to tell the tale, which is more than some can say, Vyerx added, drumming his fingers on the armrest. Let's not make a habit of it, though. I've had enough near-death experiences for one day. The crew shared a laugh, the kind that comes only after surviving something terrifyingly absurd. They were explorers, adventurers, and possibly insane, but they were alive. And in the great uncaring expanse of space, that was saying something. All right, team, Vyerx said, his voice carrying the weight of command and camaraderie. Let's get back on track. We've got a black hole to poke, secrets to uncover, and hopefully minimal explosions along the way. Here's hoping, Linara said, powering down her holo device with a satisfied sigh. And who knows? Maybe the universe will throw us a bone. Or another anomaly, Drax said, shaking his head. But hey, what's life without a little chaos? Exactly, Vyerx agreed, standing up and stretching like a man who knew he had a long journey ahead. Let's see what's out there. After all, we're the Endeavor. We don't back down from a challenge. With that, the crew returned to their stations, their resolve as strong as their humor was dark. They were explorers, charged with unraveling the mysteries of the universe, even if it meant risking everything in the process. The Endeavor surged forward once more, navigating the hyperspace rift zone with newfound determination. The coordinates awaited, promising answers, adventure, and possibly a few dozen more brushes with disaster. But then that was what they signed up for, a front-row seat to the greatest, most dangerous show in the universe. To the unknown, Vyerx said, raising his imaginary glass once again. Let's see what it's got. And so, with a mix of courage and gallows humor, the Endeavor raced toward its destiny. They were humans, after all, clever, irreverent, and stubborn as hell. And if the universe wanted to play games, it would find no better players than the crew of the Endeavor. The Endeavor shuddered as if it had just remembered an embarrassing moment from its past, and the lights flickered in a way that made it clear the ship was reconsidering its life choices. Captain Vyerx, ever the picture of calm chaos, surveyed the bridge with the look of a man who knew he was about to jump out of an airplane with nothing but a cocktail umbrella for a parachute. All right, team, Vyerx began, clapping his hands together. We've managed to piss off the universe quite nicely. Now how do we use it to our advantage? Drax, deep in the throes of what looked like a passionate affair with his console, frowned. The anomaly's getting stronger, he said. Feels like we're on the wrong end of a black hole's temper tantrum. Linara, never one to miss an opportunity for gallows humor, grinned. What? It didn't like our last performance. I thought we nailed the barely not dying routine. Vyerx chuckled, though the sound had a nervous edge to it. Maybe it's time for an encore. Thoughts? Well, Drax said, scratching his head like a man trying to coax a reluctant idea out of his brain. What if we use the anomaly's energy to power the ship? Sort of like riding a wave, but, with more death potential. Linara raised an eyebrow. Harness the energy of a hyperspace anomaly. You sure you're not part loony? Vyerx tapped his chin thoughtfully. Crazy enough to work, he decided. Let's buzz the tower and see if we can shock the aliens into a faint. Or into shooting us, Linara said with a wry smile. But hey, nothing ventured, nothing exploded. The envoy's hologram flickered back to life, its presence as welcome as a hangover at a wedding. Captain Vyerx, it intoned with a voice designed to grate cheese, we observe your vessels. Difficulties. Yeah, we're in a bit of a pickle, Vyerx said, shrugging with all the nonchalance of a man who had just lost his wallet and his pants. Thinking of using the anomaly's energy to give us a boost. The envoy's appendages made a gesture that might have been the alien equivalent of a double take. Such an action is highly inadvisable. The risks are a part of our morning coffee, Linara interrupted. We humans are big fans of the go big or go home philosophy. The envoy paused, clearly trying to process the sheer stupidity or brilliance of the suggestion. Your species' approach to survival is perplexing. Yeah, we get that a lot, Drax chimed in, fingers flying over the controls. Like a cat with 9 lives, except we're using them all at once. Vyerks leaned forward, the gleam of a gambler in his eyes. So, are you in, or are you gonna watch us steal the show? The envoy considered, its silence a testament to either deep thought or a desire to avoid being implicated in their impending doom. Our vessel will maintain current operations. We shall observe your attempt with interest. Interest, huh? Lenara said as the hologram vanished. Hope they've got popcorn. The Endeavor trembled again, the anomaly's grip tightening as if it had finally decided to commit to its homicidal tendencies. The ship's systems beeped angrily, like a symphony of disgruntled robots. All right, Vyerks said, his voice a mix of command and barely concealed excitement. Let's turn this disaster into a miracle, shall we? Drax, start the energy siphon. Lenara, keep an eye on the alien ship. I don't want them getting any ideas. Roger that, Lenara replied, her fingers dancing over her holo device with the finesse of a concert pianist. And Drax, if we blow up, can I have your chair? It's got the best view. Drax grinned, his concentration unbroken. You can have it if I'm not in it. The ship groaned, metal straining as the anomaly's pull intensified. The energy siphon engaged with a hum that seemed to resonate down to Vyerks's bones, and for a moment the crew held their collective breath. Here goes nothing, Vyerks muttered, gripping his console with the kind of determination usually reserved for last-ditch attempts at karaoke. The Endeavor jerked violently, the energy transfer causing the lights to flicker in a seizure-inducing pattern. The hum from the siphon grew louder, drowning out the ship's protests as it drank from the cosmic well of power. We're getting a boost, Drax announced, his face lit with the glow of the console. But this is about as stable as a politician's promise. Keep it steady, Vyerks said, his voice carrying the gravity of a man standing at the edge of a cliff. We need just enough juice to break free, not enough to fry us. The alien ship hovered nearby, its sleek form shimmering like a smug cat that knew more than it was letting on. Lenara kept a wary eye on it, expecting at any moment for the aliens to decide they'd rather not witness a human barbecue. Energy levels are rising, Drax reported, tension threading through his voice. We're in the green, but only just. It's like trying to juggle knives while wearing a blindfold. That's the spirit, Lenara quipped. Just remember, drop one, and it's all over. The anomaly writhed around them, its pull a tangible force that threatened to tear them apart molecule by molecule. The ship's hull creaked ominously, but Vyerks remained resolute. Almost there, Vyerks said, eyes fixed on the viewscreen like it held the answers to the universe's greatest questions. Just a bit more. The Endeavor surged forward, riding the wave of energy with a grace that belied its battered exterior. The anomaly's grip faltered, and for a moment it seemed the universe might give them a pass after all. We're clear, Drax announced, his voice a mixture of disbelief and relief. The siphon worked. We're free. The crew let out a collective sigh, the kind that comes after narrowly avoiding an impending doom that was all too familiar. Vyerks slumped back in his chair, a grin spreading across his face like the sunrise after a long night. Well, what do you know? He said, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Turns out we're not just a bunch of reckless idiots. Speak for yourself, Lenara said, leaning back with a satisfied smirk. I'm still very much an idiot, just a lucky one. The alien envoy's hologram reappeared, its multitude of eyes, or whatever equivalent they had fixed on Vyerks. Your vessel has succeeded in an improbable maneuver. Your resilience continues to intrigue us. Intrigue, huh? Vyerks said, raising an eyebrow. I'll take that as a compliment. Your species' approach to danger is unconventional, the envoy said, its voice tinged with something that might have been respect or amusement, maybe both. Unconventional is just another word for weird but effective, Drax said, wiping the sweat from his brow. And we've got that down to an art. We shall continue our observations, the envoy replied, its hologram flickering slightly. Your species presents unique variables, Vyerks chuckled, a sound that carried both pride and irony. Well, feel free to watch the show, but remember, we charge by the hour. With a final flicker, the envoy's image disappeared, leaving the crew to bask in their improbable triumph. The Endeavor hummed along, the tension of near destruction fading into the background. "So, what's next?" Lenara asked, powering down her holo device. "More black holes. Maybe a nice, quiet supernova." Vyerks leaned back, the weight of command mixing with the lightness of survival. "Let's take it one disaster at a time." "The universe isn't done with us yet. And we're not done with it," Drax said, a grin spreading across his face. "Bring on the chaos." The Endeavor continued its journey, navigating the cosmic wilderness with a renewed sense of purpose. They were explorers, survivors, and consummate gamblers, ready to face whatever the universe threw their way. "To the unknown," Vyerk said, raising his imaginary glass once again. "May it always find us as entertaining as we find it." And so, with a mix of courage, humor, and a dash of insanity, the Endeavor raced toward whatever adventure awaited. They were humans, after all, clever, irreverent, and stubborn as hell. And if the universe wanted to play games, it had found its match in the crew of the Endeavor. As the Endeavor cruised along with a newfound cockiness, it seemed the universe was not done playing its sadistic little game. The ship's temporary burst of energy sputtered like a teenager's first car, and the anomaly they just outwitted decided it had a few more tricks up its cosmic sleeve. Captain." Drax's voice was tinged with the kind of nervousness that usually preceded bad news. "We've got a problem." Vyerks rolled his eyes. "Just one? I was hoping for a full deck." Lenara leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "What did the console do this time? Start a Kangal line of catastrophic failures?" Drax's fingers darted across the console, which beeped angrily as if it knew just how close they were to becoming space dust. "The energy siphon. It overloaded the core. We're looking at a critical failure in about 5 minutes." Vyerk sighed, a sound that was both deeply frustrated and oddly resigned. 5 minutes? That's practically a lifetime. More like 5 minutes to find our asses with both hands before they get handed to us, Lenara quipped, her eyes scanning the flickering displays. The alien envoy's hologram flickered to life, adding a touch of the surreal to their impending doom. "Captain Vyerks," it said, as if announcing the weather, "your ship appears to be in distress." "No shit, Sherlock," Vyerks muttered under his breath, before addressing the envoy with a forced smile. "Yeah, bit of a rough patch. Happens to the best of us. Your attempt to harness the anomaly has left your vessel critically damaged," the envoy stated, in the kind of tone one might use to inform someone they just stepped in something unpleasant. Lenara snorted. "You mean we gambled and lost? Who'd have thought?" The hologram's appendages waved in what might have been an alien shrug. "Assistance from us is not guaranteed. Your actions have introduced significant risk to our own operations." Vyerks fought the urge to smash his fist into the console. "Look, I know we screwed the pooch here, but we're not dead yet. We could use a little help, and in return, we'll owe you one. Humans always pay their debts." The envoy paused, perhaps weighing their odds against the potential PR disaster of leaving a bunch of humans to explode in a hyperspace rift zone. "Your species' resilience is noted. However, our mandate—" Yeah, your mandate," Drax interrupted, his fingers flying over the controls in a desperate attempt to stabilize the ship. "But think about it. If we pull through this, you get to study us more. Get your science on or whatever." "We're a hell of a case study," Lenara added, her tone sarcastic but just sincere enough to prick the envoy's curiosity. "Who else do you know that uses hyperspace anomalies like a cheap power-up?" The envoy's gaze shifted, pondering the kind of existential quandary that could only be resolved by a committee. "We will deliberate. Not too long, though," Vyerk said, his voice tinged with gallows humor. "Otherwise, we'll be the newest addition to the galaxy's most interesting debris field." With that, the hologram winked out, leaving the crew to face their impending demise alone. The ship vibrated ominously, like a giant tuning fork that had finally decided to call it quits. "Options?" Vyerks asked, his tone implying there weren't many. "Pray to every god in the universe and hope one of them's listening," Linara said, offering a grin that was all teeth and no mirth. "Or," Drax offered, "we could try rerouting non-essential power and focus on getting life support stable. It won't save us, but it might buy us some time." "Time's what we need," Vierx agreed, nodding. "Do it." Drax worked like a man possessed, the console lighting up under his touch. The ship shuddered, but the sense of imminent catastrophe held off, if only for a moment. "Looks like we might not die in the next 30 seconds, Linara said. "That's an improvement." Vierx chuckled, though there was no joy in it. "Gallows humor till the end, eh?" "It's all I've got," Linara replied, her eyes fixed on the alien vessel still hovering nearby. "Think they'll bail us out, or are we on our own?" "Depends on how generous they're feeling," Drax said, his attention never wavering from the controls. "And how much they like intergalactic soap operas." Vierx leaned back in his chair, contemplating the vast, uncaring universe they found themselves in. "Let's hope they're fans of happy endings." The ship continued to groan and creak as power levels fluctuated, the lights flickering like a bad disco. The crew worked in tense silence, the kind that feels like a shared secret between people who know they might not see another sunrise. Then, without warning, the alien envoy's hologram returned, its expression, or lack thereof, impenetrable. "Captain Vierx, our deliberations have concluded." Vierx sat up, every fiber of his being focused on the envoy. And the envoy's appendages twitched, perhaps a gesture of concession or simply alien indecision. "We will provide assistance. Your species' persistence is of interest to our research efforts." Drax let out a low whistle. "Didn't think we'd actually pull that off." Linara smirked. "Never underestimate the power of human stubbornness." "Indeed," the envoy agreed, its tone almost begrudgingly amused. "Prepare for energy transfer. We will stabilize your core." "Well, isn't this a turn of events?" Vierx said, as if the universe had just handed him a winning lottery ticket. "Looks like we're not done annoying the galaxy just yet." The ship's systems hummed to life under the alien influence, lights steadying as power coursed through the Endeavor like a second wind. The crew exchanged glances, the relief palpable but tempered by the knowledge that the universe was far from finished with them. "Stabilization complete," the envoy announced, the flicker in its hologram suggesting a satisfaction that transcended cultural boundaries. "Your vessel is now operational." "Thanks," Vierx said, his voice carrying genuine gratitude and a hint of lingering disbelief. "Next round's on us." "We shall observe your progress with continued interest," the envoy replied, its hologram fading into nothingness once more. As the alien ship withdrew to a safe distance, the crew of the Endeavor took a collective breath, the weight of their survival settling in. They danced on the edge of the abyss and lived to tell the tale, a tale of recklessness, ingenuity, and sheer bloody-mindedness. "So, Captain," Linara said, her tone light but her eyes weary. "What's next on our list of bad ideas?" Vierx grinned, that familiar spark of defiance shining through. "I don't know, but I'm sure the universe will have something in store for us." The Endeavor resumed its journey, a battered but defiant testament to human tenacity. They'd faced the storm and emerged not unscathed, but still very much alive. "To the next disaster," Drax said, raising an imaginary glass. Vierx chuckled, raising his own invisible toast. "To surviving the impossible." With that, the Endeavor pushed onward, its crew united by the shared madness of their existence in a universe that seemed hell-bent on crushing them at every turn. They were explorers, survivors, and above all human, clever, irreverent, and as stubborn as a mule with nothing left to lose. And the galaxy would just have to deal with it. The Endeavor was like an old dog trying to convince everyone it was still fit for the hunt, despite the fleas and the missing teeth. The ship hummed with the reluctant energy from the aliens, like it had been given a shot of adrenaline right to the engine room. But even with the temporary fix, everyone on board knew they were one bad sneeze away from becoming a smear in the cosmic dance floor. Vierx stood in the middle of the bridge, his hands planted on his hips like he was about to scold a particularly stupid child. "All right, crew," he announced. "We need to do something about the ship before it decides it's had enough of our nonsense." Linara was already halfway through her inspection of the console, which was behaving as if it had a mind of its own and not a particularly stable one at that. "I swear this thing is running on pure spite," she muttered, giving the console a fond pat that was only slightly condescending. Drax, still riding the adrenaline rush of narrowly escaping death, chimed in from his station. "Good news is most of the ship's systems are working barely. Bad news. Well, we might need more than duct tape to hold it all together." "Great," Linara replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Anyone got a universal roll of duct tape? Maybe some existential glue?" Vyark sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "We need solutions, people, practical ones. And before you say it, Linara, no, we can't just pray to the god of hopes and dreams." Linara snapped her fingers. "Damn, there goes Plan A." Vyark chuckled despite himself. "All right, ideas. We need to keep this hunk of junk flying long enough to reach somewhere not actively trying to kill us." The lights flickered ominously, as if the ship was reminding everyone just how precarious their situation was. Like a passive-aggressive roommate flipping the switch to remind you the electric bill's overdue. "There's that hyperspace anomaly we were cozying up to earlier," Drax said, pulling up a display on his console. "If we can stabilize the energy siphon, maybe we can get a more controlled power boost." Linara raised an eyebrow. "You mean the same anomaly that nearly turned us into cosmic confetti?" "Controlled," Drax emphasized, his voice almost hopeful. "It's sort of like playing with fireworks. Fun and not at all dangerous if you do it right." "And if we do it wrong?" Vyark asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer. "We become a spectacular light show," Drax replied, shrugging. "One for the ages. They'll probably name a crater after us." Linara tapped her foot, considering. "It's a long shot, but it's a shot. And let's face it, we're not exactly swimming in options here." Vyark nodded, the kind of nod that carried the weight of leadership, or at least the responsibility of trying not to get everyone killed. "Let's do it. Drax, Linara, get the energy siphon prepped. I'll make sure the ship's ready to handle whatever batch of crazy we're cooking up." As the crew set to work, the bridge bustled with the kind of frantic energy that only arose when facing imminent doom. There was a comfort in the chaos, a familiarity in knowing that everyone was doing their part to keep their asses firmly attached to their bodies. "Got the siphon recalibrating," Drax announced, fingers a blur over the console. "It's like trying to teach a cat to fetch, but I think it's working," Linara snorted. "Never thought I'd hear you compare advanced alien technology to a cat, but here we are." At her side, Vyark chuckled. "Hey, if it works, I'll call it whatever it wants. Just as long as it doesn't blow up in our faces." The ship groaned as systems rerouted power, the lights flickering in protest as the crew fought to stabilize the core. It was like trying to keep a house of cards standing in a hurricane, but they were making progress. "Core's holding steady," Linara reported, not bothering to hide her surprise. "I can't believe it, but we might actually pull this off." "Don't jinx it," Drax warned, as if the universe was patiently waiting for an opportunity to make them eat their words. The alien envoy's hologram flickered back to life, observing their efforts with a curiosity that was almost palpable. "Captain Vyark, your crew's resourcefulness is unexpected." Vyark offered a wry smile. "Yeah, we have a habit of surprising people. Just when you think we're out of tricks, we pull a rabbit out of a hat, or in this case, power from an anomaly." Linara gave a mock bow towards the hologram. "Stick around, you might learn a thing or two about human ingenuity. Or stupidity, depending on how this ends." The envoy's expressionless face didn't change, but there was something in its tone that suggested a reevaluation. "Your actions are intriguing. Perhaps there is more to your species' survival than mere chance." Drax grinned. "Oh, there's plenty more. Like stubbornness, a complete disregard for safety, and the occasional miracle." The envoy's hologram flickered, its appendages moving in a gesture that was either interpreted as approval or mild amusement. "We shall continue to observe your progress. There is much our coalition can learn from your unique approach." Vierks nodded. "Glad we could provide some entertainment. We'll keep at it. Who knows? Maybe we'll survive this and have one hell of a story to tell." The envoy faded away once more, leaving the crew to their task. The ship continued to shudder, but there was a growing sense of stability, like a tightrope walker finally finding their balance. "Power levels are steady," Drax announced, his voice holding a mix of relief and disbelief. "We did it. We actually did it." Lenara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I don't know whether to laugh or cry." "How about both?" Vierks suggested, a grin playing at his lips. "We've earned it." The crew exchanged glances, a silent acknowledgement of the madness they'd just survived. They'd managed to turn a potential catastrophe into a minor victory, proving once again that humans were a force to be reckoned with, even if it sometimes felt like the universe was their personal punching bag. With the ship stable, they had a moment to reflect on what they'd accomplished. It was a moment of calm amid the storm, a rare pause in the chaos that defined their lives. "So what now?" Lenara asked, her voice carrying the weariness of someone who'd been running on adrenaline for far too long. Vierks leaned back in his chair, allowing himself a moment of satisfaction. Now we get the hell out of this rift zone before it changes its mind." Drax snorted. "Sounds like a solid plan. Maybe find a quiet corner of the universe and catch our breath." "Quiet corner," Lenara echoed, rolling her eyes. "On this ship, with this crew, dream on." Vierks laughed, the sound full of the camaraderie and tension that had become their second nature. "All right, maybe not quiet. But somewhere not actively trying to kill us would be a nice change of pace." As the Endeavor moved out of the rift zone, the crew felt a shift, not just in their situation but in themselves. They'd faced the kind of odds that would make lesser beings curl into a ball and cry for their mothers. But here they were, still standing, still fighting, and still very much alive. "To surviving another day," Drax said, raising his imaginary glass once again. Vierks nodded, a wry smile on his lips. "To surviving another day." Lenara glanced around, her expression thoughtful. "And to whatever new insanity the universe decides to throw our way next." Vierks chuckled, that familiar spark of defiance shining through despite it all. "Bring it on. We've got plenty of tricks left up our sleeves." With that, the Endeavor continued its journey through the vast, uncaring expanse of space. They'd faced the worst the universe had to offer and come out the other side, battered but unbroken. They were explorers, survivors, and most importantly, human, clever, irreverent, and just stubborn enough to keep going, no matter what. And the galaxy would just have to learn to expect the unexpected, because the crew of the Endeavor wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. Captain Vierks stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, looking like a man who'd just found out he was getting audited by the Galactic Tax Authority. His crew, a ragtag bunch of cynics with just the right amount of gallows humor, busied themselves around him. The old hunk of junk they called a ship was still in one piece, but given their track record, that was more a temporary condition than a permanent state of affairs. "So," Vierks began, scanning the bridge with the air of a general surveying a particularly unruly army, "we've cheated death once again. How's everyone feeling about our chances of doing it twice in one day?" Lenara, his first officer and purveyor of the kind of sarcasm that could cut durasteel, leaned on her console. "Feeling? You mean besides all the adrenaline and existential dread? Peachy." Vierks chuckled, a sound that was more habit than genuine amusement. "Good to hear. Drax, how's our favorite hyperspace anomaly looking?" Ensign Drax, the ship's resident optimist by default, was hunched over his console like a man trying to solve a particularly annoying crossword puzzle. "Well, it's still there, looking all swirly and dangerous, but I think we've got a shot at stabilizing it. Assuming nothing decides to explode." "That's a comforting thought," Lenara quipped, her fingers dancing over her own panel. "If we're lucky, maybe we'll only get partially obliterated." Now, Vyerk said, feigning a scolding tone. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We have an anomaly to tame and a universe to show that humanity isn't just a bunch of scrappy underdogs." The alien envoy, a hologram with all the charisma of a malfunctioning toaster, flickered into view, its expression unreadable. "Captain Vyerks, your continued survival is commendable." "Thanks," Vyerks replied, his voice dripping with the kind of politeness reserved for uncomfortable family dinners. "It's a tough gig, but someone's got to do it." The envoy's holographic form shimmered, perhaps in acknowledgement. "Your species' resilience is atypical. Most would have ceased by now." Lenara snorted. "That's us, never knowing when to quit. It's a talent, really." Vyerks turned his attention back to Drax, who was poking the console with the same enthusiasm one might show a sleeping bear. "All right, Drax. Let's see if we can convince this anomaly to play nice. Think of it as the universe's most dangerous petting zoo." Drax nodded, fingers a blur across the flickering controls. "Adjusting the energy siphon parameters now. If we can synchronize with the anomaly's oscillations, it might just work." Lenara raised an eyebrow. "And if it doesn't, then we'll have the most spectacular view of our own demise," Drax replied, not missing a beat. "Front row seats." "Great, I love a good light show," Lenara said dryly, glancing over the readings. "Still, I'd rather not become stardust today." The ship shuddered as the energy siphon engaged, its groans echoing through the hull like an old man refusing to wake up. The bridge lights dimmed, flickered, and then steadied as systems began to reroute power. "Anomaly stabilizing," Drax announced, sounding as surprised as anyone. "Against all odds, it's actually working." "Don't sound too shocked," Vyerk said with a wry grin. "We might start thinking you doubted us." The envoy's holographic form tilted its head, a gesture that could have meant anything from curiosity to indigestion. "Your methods are unconventional, yet effective." "That's us," Lenara said, giving a mock salute to the envoy. "Unconventional and somehow not dead." Vyerks leaned back, watching as the anomaly's data streamed across the screens. The ship was holding steady, the energy siphon working like a charm, or at least as well as anything on this bucket of bolts ever did. "All right, keep it up. Let's show this anomaly who's boss." The envoy regarded Vyerks with what might have been respect or mild confusion. "Perhaps we underestimated your capabilities." "Wouldn't be the first time," Vyerks replied, a hint of smugness creeping into his voice. "Humans have a knack for surprising people, especially when it comes to not dying." Lenara chuckled, the sound a welcome counterpoint to the ever-present hum of the ship systems. "Yeah, we like to keep things interesting. Otherwise, what would be the point?" The envoy's holographic form shimmered, a silent acknowledgement of their achievement. "Our coalition has much to learn from your species. Your actions here have shown us that there is more to survival than mere chance." Vyerks nodded, feeling the weight of both leadership and impending triumph. "Glad we could help. Just remember, it wasn't all luck. A little stubbornness, a dash of insanity, and a whole lot of teamwork." As the anomaly continued to stabilize, the bridge filled with a sense of cautious optimism. They'd done it. Against all odds, they'd tamed the beast and lived to tell the tale. "Power levels are back to normal," Drax confirmed, his relief palpable. "We're not just surviving, we're thriving." Lenara let out a breath, her posture relaxing as the tension eased. "Well, that was fun. Let's never do it again." "Agreed," Vyerk said, casting a glance at the envoy. "But hey, if you ever need someone to show you how to dance with death, you know where to find us." The envoy's holographic form flickered once more, its appendages moving in a gesture that might have been a bow or a glitch. "Your cooperation has proven invaluable. We will share our findings with the coalition." "Happy to help," Vyerks replied, his tone carrying a mix of pride and relief. "Just do us a favor and keep this little adventure between us." The envoy's form shimmered again, its expression unreadable but somehow approving. "Your actions will be noted, Captain Vyerks." The Coalition will not forget this demonstration of human ingenuity. Good to know, Vyerk said, a grin twitching at the corners of his mouth. Now, if you'll excuse us, we've got a universe to explore and a ship to keep from falling apart. The envoy's holographic form faded away, leaving the crew with a newfound sense of accomplishment. They'd done what seemed impossible and lived to tell the tale. So, what do we do now? Lenara asked, her voice carrying the familiar mix of sarcasm and genuine curiosity. Vyerk shrugged, the weight of leadership feeling a little lighter for once. I say we find a nice, quiet corner of the cosmos to catch our breath, maybe even a planet with real gravity and drinks that don't taste like recycled engine coolant. Drax grinned, leaning back in his chair with the air of someone who'd just aced a particularly difficult test. Sounds good to me. I've had enough near-death experiences for one day. Lenara nodded, her expression thoughtful. Yeah, a bit of peace and quiet wouldn't hurt, just for a change. The Endeavor, now stable and humming with a sense of accomplishment, set a course away from the anomaly and into the depths of space. They'd faced the impossible and come out the other side, proving once again that humanity was more than just the universe's punching bag. As the stars stretched out before them, a sense of camaraderie settled over the crew. They were explorers, survivors, and most importantly, human, clever, irreverent, and just the right amount of insane to keep going. To surviving another day, Vyerk said, raising an imaginary glass in a toast to his crew. Lenara and Drax echoed the gesture, their voices carrying the weight of both exhaustion and triumph. To surviving another day. With that, the Endeavor continued its journey through the vast, uncaring expanse of space. They'd faced the worst the universe had to offer and come out stronger, if a little more battered for the experience. And somewhere out there, a coalition of aliens had just learned that humanity was not to be underestimated. Because when it came to dancing on the edge of oblivion, humans had a way of making it look easy. The bridge of the Endeavor was quieter than usual, which was saying something for a ship that often sounded like a bar fight in progress. Captain Vyerks, sporting his best "I can't believe we survived that" grin, leaned back in his captain's chair, the weight of recent events still heavy but somehow lighter with the taste of victory. The crew busied themselves with post-calamity routines, the kind that reminded them they weren't just drifting space debris. "All right, folks," Vyerks said, breaking the comfortable silence like a parent interrupting teenagers at a party. "We've shown the universe we're made of sterner stuff than they give us credit for. What's next on the agenda, besides not dying, of course?" First Officer Lenara, always ready with a quip, flicked at her console like she was trying to win an argument with it. "How about we start by convincing the ship not to fall apart? I like not being sucked into the void of space." Vyerks nodded sagely. "A noble goal." "Drax, how's our hyperspace anomaly? I hope it's decided to play nice." Ensign Drax, the ship's professional optimist, looked up from his console with the demeanor of someone who'd just discovered his favorite snack was on sale. "Anomaly's stable, Captain. We even managed to get some useful data from it." Lenara raised an eyebrow, her voice tinged with irony. "Useful data? I think that's a first for us. Usually we just get explosions and existential crises." Vyerks chuckled, a genuine sound this time, not just a reflex to ward off the abyss. "Who would have thought? A day in space where we learn something and don't have to scrape anyone off the walls." The alien envoy's holographic form, now a familiar face, or whatever it had for a face, flickered into view, looking as unreadable as ever. "Captain Vyerks, your actions have been noted by the Coalition. Your survival against such odds is unexpected." "Unexpected is our middle name," Vyerks replied, his tone carrying the kind of cheek you'd save for a customs officer. "We aim to surprise." The envoy shimmered slightly, perhaps a sign of approval or just bad reception. "The Coalition is interested in forming an alliance based on the knowledge you have gained." Lenara leaned closer, whispering to Vyerks. "Did we just get invited to the intergalactic cool kids table?" Vyerks grinned, ignoring the still looming threat of the ship's unstable systems. Looks like it. And here I thought they'd never let us in after that incident with the ambassador's ceremonial headwear. The envoy continued, apparently unaware of, or tactfully ignoring, the ongoing snark. Your data on the anomaly will contribute significantly to our understanding of hyperspace phenomena. It's clear your species possesses unique insights. Lenara smirked, leaning back as though she'd just been complimented on her ability to insult in 3 languages. Unique insights is one way to put it. I'd call it sheer dumb luck and a penchant for chaos. The Coalition is willing to offer assistance in stabilizing your ship as a gesture of goodwill, the envoy added, its holographic presence flickering like an indecisive light bulb. Vyerks nodded, the offer like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Well, we appreciate that. Our ship's seen better days, and by better I mean slightly less bad. Drax, ever the sunshine in their grim little corner of the galaxy, piped up. This could be the start of something great. Real alliances, new opportunities. Lenara shrugged, a gesture that managed to convey both nonchalance and an underlying optimism. Or it could all go to hell in a handbasket. But isn't that just part of the charm? Vyerks, feeling unusually hopeful, addressed the envoy with a sincerity that caught even him off guard. We'd be honored to share what we know. And in return, maybe learn a thing or two, not just about hyperspace, but about how not to end up as cosmic flotsam. The envoy's form shifted slightly, an alien nod if there ever was one. Your willingness to collaborate is noted, Captain Vyerks. We shall prepare the necessary resources to aid your ship. Great, Vyerks said, his tone straddling the line between sarcasm and genuine relief. We'll try not to blow up before you get here. With that, the envoy's hologram flickered out, leaving the bridge eerily quiet again. The crew sat in the glow of consoles that, against all odds, were still operational. Lenara broke the silence, her voice carrying the weight of both skepticism and hope. Do you think this changes things for us, Captain? Vyerks considered the question, his eyes scanning the bridge as though seeking answers in the blinking lights. Maybe it does, just a little. New allies, new possibilities. At the very least, it's a chance to show the universe we're not just a bunch of scrappy underdogs. Or a chance to blow up in new and exciting ways, Lenara added, her sarcasm tempered by the camaraderie of shared hardship. Either way, Drax chimed in, his optimism undimmed. It's a story worth telling. Humans and aliens working together. Vyerks leaned back, his chair creaking ominously but somehow reassuringly. True, and who knows? Maybe we'll even learn how to negotiate without insulting someone's grandmother. The bridge settled into a comfortable hum, the crew busying themselves with tasks that, while mundane, felt a little more meaningful in the wake of their latest adventure. Think they'll really help us fix the ship? Lenara asked, her tone casual but edged with genuine curiosity. Vyerks shrugged, a gesture that seemed to convey both confidence and resignation. Let's hope so. I don't fancy our chances of holding her together with just duct tape and hope. Hope's gotten us this far, Drax noted, his fingers dancing over his console as he monitored the ship's systems. Lenara snorted, but there was a warmth to it, like a reluctant concession. Yeah, and sheer stubbornness. Can't forget that. The ship's lights dimmed slightly as the power fluxed, a reminder that while they'd won this round, the fight was far from over. Vyerks sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. All right, let's wrap things up. I want status reports on every system before we set course for the nearest Coalition outpost. Aye, Captain, Lenara and Drax replied in unison, their voices carrying a mix of determination and fatigue. As Vyerks watched his crew dive back into their work, he felt a strange sense of gratitude. They'd faced the worst the universe had to offer, and not only had they survived, but they'd thrived, however briefly. It was a story worth telling, one that spoke of resilience, humor in the face of danger, and the indomitable spirit of humanity. The Endeavor hummed around them, a testament to their shared tenacity and the promise of a new chapter, Whether that chapter involved alliances with alien coalitions or merely surviving another day remained to be seen, but for now, it was enough. Linara's voice broke through his thoughts, her tone light yet grounded. "Hey, Captain, what do you think the aliens will make of us after this? Think they'll want to keep us around?" Vyerks chuckled, the sound both weary and hopeful. "I think they'll keep us around for the entertainment value alone. We're the cosmic sitcom they didn't know they needed." Drax grinned. "And who knows? Maybe next time we'll even get it right on the first try. Or at least not need a miracle to save our hides," Linara added, her eyes twinkling with a mix of mischief and relief. They laughed, the sound echoing in the metal confines of their spacefaring home, a reminder that even in the darkest of spaces, a little humor could light the way. And as the Endeavor drifted into the vast unknown, Captain Vyerks couldn't help but feel a strange sense of peace. They'd made it, against all odds, and that was something worth celebrating, even if it meant doing it all over again tomorrow. As the ship sailed on through the infinite sea of stars, with an ally or two in their corner and a story to tell, the crew of the Endeavor savored the moment. Because in this crazy, indifferent universe, surviving to see another day was nothing short of a miracle, and they were experts at miracles, or maybe just really, really stubborn. "To tomorrow," Vyerks said, raising his imaginary glass once more, a toast to the endless possibilities of the cosmos and the strange, indomitable spirit of humanity. Linara and Drax raised their own phantom glasses, their voices carrying the weight of both exhaustion and triumph, echoing through the ship as it ventured into the unknown. "To tomorrow," they echoed, knowing full well that whatever came next, they'd face it with the same irreverence and tenacity that had gotten them this far. After all, they were human, and in this vast, uncaring universe that meant something. Even if it was just being the most stubborn species around.